there, welcome to the Matt Ave Collective. My name is Scott Gregory. This is our monthly panel discussion. We're joined today by Fred Connor, far end there. He's the Senior Marketing Director in the Office of Marketing and Communications at Bowling Green State University. For 21 years, he's been in charge of BGSU's advertising, promotions, marketing, and communications. He's a brand strategy expert. He supervises the marketing staff, marketing agencies, and media buyers, and he's recognized for communicating BGSU's competitive advantage and distinction. Welcome, Fred.
Thank you.
And Dave Gerke is the Director of Development at the Toledo School for the Arts, a public charter school here in Toledo's Uptown District. The school was established in 1999 and since 2008 has been sponsored by BGSU. Dave has been a touring musician, a percussion consultant for area schools, and a small business owner as well. And he has an education degree and a certified fundraising professional. And he's been with TSA from the very first day the school opened.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
That's something else.
First real job I've ever had.
Well, tell us about, Dave, the relationship between TSA and BGSU. How did that happen?
The BG is actually our sponsor. If you have a charter school, they have to have a chartering organization. Charter schools were established in 1998 by a new law, a state law, and they differ from state to state. The state of Ohio is actually the most volatile state for charter schools, one of the most volatile states for charter schools. Get a lot of pressure from traditional public schools, which are usually unionized. Most charter schools are not unionized, and charter schools operate only on state funds, so we don't get any of the local district money. So when we first started, we had another sponsor. And a sponsor, the qualifications for a sponsor are essentially another nonprofit with a large budget and a like mission, preferably education for us, obviously. And so they do oversight. They have board members that are involved on our board, and there's a certain amount of responsibility from them to us. We changed to Bowling Green State University mainly because Bowling Green has such a solid arts program and their education program so great, and so we decided to start that relationship in 2008, bridled by our executive director Marty Porter, and it's been a great relationship. We have go-to people. We're kind of an urban teaching lab for Bowling Green State University education majors, and it's been a real good relaلاtionship.
Fred, does the relationship with TSA say anything about your priorities in terms of who you're going after as part of the student body, or do you have similar relationships with other?
We have similar relationships with other institutions, but I think TSA is special in the fact that it's a local charter that we truly do pay a lot of attention to and support. There's very good back and forth with our students that learn in that environment as well as learn from that environment. Our commitment has just been extended through 2017, I believe, in one of our board meetings recently. So again, that shows you our commitment to TSA. And certainly the arts at BGSU are a major focus for us as an institution, as is education. So it's a good combination for us, a good fit.
What we do here at the Collective and online with this video series is aimed primarily at freelance creatives, and anybody in the freelance community really, but so a lot of those folks are involved in marketing as well. So can you give us an overview of the things you consider when developing a marketing campaign that's aimed, I guess, well, specifically at attracting students?
Sure. Again, similar to any other marketing organization, again, we look from starting out with our brand promise, and really the marketing campaigns are an extension of that brand promise each time. We've done everything from working with larger agencies such as yours to working with independent creatives, again, smaller shops like Matt House and things of that nature. Really, when it comes to creating that marketing campaign, we start obviously with market research, looking at our brand presence, what we're known in the marketplace, how we're known, what are some of the things or triggers for students specifically on making the decision as to which institution that they pick, but also looking at the opinion leaders and parents, which are a driving force, especially with as expensive as education is these days. We need to have them on board as well. So from a creative standpoint, we begin with the market research. We look at again, what is the brand promise? What's the extension of that brand promise? Currently, we're working with a campaign, It's All About You. and it's focused on the individual student and what that individual student can get from Bowling Green State University and what we provide that student. And I think that really fits well with our overall mission and identity. BGSU has always been an exceptional state university that provides kind of a small college atmosphere with major university opportunities is usually our elevator speech on these kinds of things. And I think It's All About You really fits in nicely with that. This particular campaign really was an extension of the campaign prior to it. And we used more in-house creatives for this than we have in the past.
Any similarities, Dave, with TSA, or differences, or?
There's a budget difference. Yeah, I'm a drummer. And when we started the school in '99, there were about 3 people really making the majority of decisions. I think we had 6 full-time employees, a budget at about $600,000. Now it's $6.3 million. And it's just gone. It's mind-blowing, frankly. And so the fact that we have more resources now, students, clearly, I run the development department. I'm mainly a fundraiser. But the ability to afford reaching out to professional creatives and actually having a firm on retainer to help you do your design work has been stellar for us. Last 2 years ago was the first time we ever actually had a year-long process over the whole thing. Now that's we're 15 years old. So we were 12 years old before we really even started looking at the brand. We were frankly just trying to find warm bodies to fill up our school, and we've evolved quite a bit. When we first started, we thought it was very important to be very clear about the fact that we were a college prep school, and it was arts-based curriculum. So even in our hiring practices, if you were a social studies teacher, you had better have some knowledge of how art has influenced your particular subject matter. So we've stayed really very true to the mission, and I think that's been probably our most successful point. And so we're now able to do that on a higher level. I don't know if the big banners on the side of the school. I had to go to city council because the postage size stamp that they were allowing us by law to do wouldn't have got us anything. So we had the 2 big banners that hang on the side of our school right now make it feel kind of like Chicago-ish to me, or a bigger city, and it feels like a big campaign to recruit students. So I think resources obviously have increased for us, and so it's a little more sophisticated than it's ever been, and
But it's still after all these years organic, and your message is still that first message that is still resonating.
And it's changed. And it's changed considerably in the last few years. When we first started the school, we were 98% Toledo Public students. We're currently about 60% Toledo Public students and 40% from the suburbs. As the message got out, we became more popular. I started in the classroom, and in the classroom, for me, it was that mixture of kids, and I'll call them creatives for this subject, because it was that mixture of a student that had raw talent and had grown up perhaps in a culture where dancing was okay for boys, and even at an early age. And then you mix that student with a kid that may have gone to the art museum for Saturday lessons for many, many years, and they start becoming the students of the other students. And it's that mixture that I think that we really tried to bridle. So all of our spending now is currently in the inner city, trying to keep our diversity up and trying to keep inner city students involved in our school. We didn't build the place in an urban environment to serve suburban kids, but the suburban kids most often bring a lot of great experiences to the school.
For both of you, one of the main audiences is always going to be the same. It's the students of a certain age, it's the parents, it's those stakeholders, those decision makers. But as marketers, and this is what we're discussing, that it's in our 30, 40 years of doing this, things have changed so dramatically. So how do you market to those same people as you get older, and the kids basically stay the same age? They're 12 to 18 or whatever they may be. As marketers and creative folks, how do you embrace the change, and how has that approach to the student-parent audience changed over the years?
I'll jump first. Really, we rely on the students at Bowling Green State University. Again, they are our target audience. usually a couple years older than the 16, 17, 18-year-olds that we target as traditional age students. The market research does help a lot. Again, we talk about what channels of communication are you using, what are you paying attention to. We test our creative with them. We hire young people, as I see in the audience here today, that are in their mid-20s, and they bring a lot to the table with regard to our web, multimedia, social media campaigns. Certainly from a media buying standpoint, we've shifted with the times to try and be where our students are. Again, traditional broadcast forms of communication aren't really where most of them are. So again, we're reaching out into those new channels, and that just keeps changing all the time. We were joking about it earlier. Again, we don't know what that next phase is going to be. I had my mother-in-law here over the weekend, and she's 70 years old, and she was on her iPhone looking at Facebook all day. So I mean, you know, I don't know that our 16-year-olds are going to stay in that environment when grandma and great-grandma are, you know, in that environment. So we try to keep on top of where are they going to be next. And it's true. I mean, we've seen these kinds of shifts happen before. And some of those channels of communication completely go away, and sometimes they morph. So that's our focus. That's what we try to do. And again, try to measure our effectiveness in those environments.
And that will only continue to change more rapidly than ever. But what we also discussed is, for any creative listening, regardless of the venue or the channel you use, it's still about
the creativity. Exactly. Again, it's going to be how do you write to capture their attention? What visuals are you using? What kind of iconography? Whatever it might be. I mean, again, any form of media is going to have its nuances as far as what the channel or the platform is. But again, I think some of the basics of what we've learned over the years from persuasion and marketing and advertising really stay the same. So their needs change, their focus change, what they think is creative and good now as compared to what was before. We've seen shifts in the creative to retro being cool. I mean, we've seen all kinds of changes in the creative over the years, and how it works and how it functions and how you reach out to the students. But again, it's difficult as marketers as we get older. Again, I was joking earlier as well. Again, I was young at one time and creative, and I had my hands on the technology and did all that. And I'm, you know, now wearing my suit and tie and, you know, and overseeing people that do this. But again, we laugh about not connecting with them. But I think, fortunately for us, working in higher education, and probably the same for you, the students that are around you keep you alive and keep you informed on what's happening in the marketplace.
Dave, talk about the process of creating marketing campaigns for your school, TSA. Do you always develop concepts based on the calendar, or do you address specific needs as they come up? You said that fairly recently you just got a hold of the concept of a brand and an overarching sort of thing.
Yeah, for about 12 years we've had an events guide that goes out at the beginning of the season, just like any arts organization. And I think our leadership was very wise in setting us up to think more like an arts institution rather than just a school. So we do compare ourselves and position ourselves with other, we call them partners in the community, like the Toledo Museum of Art, the Arts Commission, the Opera, the Symphony, all those organizations. We announce our season at the same time they do. So we do have an events guide. We print less of them than we used to because so much of it's more online, and we are using more social media. We also have younger creatives in our place that are helping us do that. We still find that 85% of our students come because of word of mouth, because they know another student that's been there and they've had that experience. And that seems to be continuous no matter where we, you know, if we put more money toward Facebook than we did, than print media, we still find that it's still about the relationship that the student has. We can turn the student on to come into our place and convince mom and dad to come, but when mom and dad come, we had certainly better have the numbers. We better be able to show the numbers that we've been successful, you know. And if I could say to a parent, you know, you'd have to go to Ottawa Hills to go to a school that has better state proficiencies than us. That's pretty impressive, you know. We've been able to do that in the inner city. So I pity some of the charter schools that have, you know, kids that are ill prepared to come into the environment. And that's one of our biggest challenges also. But because of our influx of so many kids coming from a variance of educational backgrounds, we're able to you know, operate at a little bit higher level.
Let's talk about that real quick, just the word of mouth and how important that is, and how important is that to your institution, and how do you generate that?
It's tremendously important. Again, if you look at BGSU from a historic standpoint, again, it goes back to something we were talking about earlier. At one point in time, we had almost 90% of our students coming from in the state of Ohio. Okay, now that's down to less than 80%. So where are those students coming from now? How have we changed that? How have our markets changed? We still have a tremendous footprint, if you will, in northern Ohio, the Cleveland market, Northwest Ohio market. We're trying to do more in Columbus, Cincinnati, and reach out a little bit further south. Again, Columbus is very fertile ground for us with regard to the numbers of high school graduates, people that fit our profile, the types of students that would do well at Bowling Green State University. But it is very difficult. Those are very expensive markets, as we all know, when you have to do the media buying and place your message into those markets. But the new channels of communication are helping us with that. It's hard to establish a long-term identity. Again, BGSU is over 100 years old. It's a little bit different than starting out in 1998. So we have some history with us, and usually that's pretty good for us. So we've been fortunate there. Areas of like education and the arts, business, we're not as well known in some other areas that we would like to be known, and that's where it's difficult. That's where our mission is to really, how can we get our message out there, break the fray, let people know what BGSU has to offer, and at least get them interested enough to seek us out. But buzz has always been the bottom line. Again, if you've got people talking about you, that's what makes things happen. You can't always just measure, I got so many click-throughs into my website, because they're only going to get so far, So you've got to have something that balances that, and that if they say, hey, I was checking out BGSU, somebody's saying something good about the program, or they know one of the alums or something of that nature. Those networks really help out a lot. Yeah.
Let's get down to the kind of the nitty gritty here. Once you've decided, Fred, on a main theme, let's say, of a marketing campaign, how does that creative work get done? Do you split up into teams? Is it very are people working independently, collaboratively? How does it work?
It's a pretty collaborative shop. Again, we've got about 27 people in our shop. We're like a small agency, if you will, for the university. Again, just to give people a sense of volume and things of that nature, we do between $1.5 million and $2 million in print alone every year. So that's just kind of the nature of how much we have to communicate the different constituent groups we've got. When it comes to creative like this, again, our creative director, Jeff Arts, and myself, our chief communications officer, work through with some of our communication managers that represent the colleges and divisions. To look at the creative direction that we're going. We certainly work with a number of students and grad students to get their take on where we're going. Does it resonate? Does it still hold true? Is it something that would be believable if we go forward with it? We do a little testing. We run programs like summer orientation for incoming students and their parents, so it gives us a prime opportunity to do our own market research right there, where we just grab some people, siphon them off, and test our creative and see how it's playing out. So that's usually how we go through that process. Then it's working with the administration and making sure we've got buy-in at the leadership. Again, we're a large organization, a lot of employees. You need to make sure that you've got your employees behind what you're saying, or it's not going to work. We need to make sure our alums believe in what we're saying. We're fortunate in this market that a lot of the creative shops and independent creatives are BGSU alums. So they have an affinity, they have a tie to BGSU. They know who we are, so they're a good litmus test on, is this going to work? Is this going to resonate? And then to make sure that young people get it. What we're doing is kind of the key. So really, again, we work from the creative director, all of our media input from the other designers, multimedia, web, social media folks have to kind of weigh in on it and see if we can make that message work.
What about that buy-in, David, at a smaller institution like yours? Is that even more important?
Yeah, I think it is.
Live and breathe that?
I think it is. And we can get immediate feedback from any idea that we have by just taking it to the kids. And we're 6th through 12th grade, so that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade group is kind of a separate demo, and then the high schoolers are a separate demo. We physically separate them. There's separate floors, but if a kid's a really good fiddle player, he's in the advanced orchestra. But for the most part, it's fairly separate. And the marketing aspect, especially internally, because we do have fundraisers within the school, how we market to particular groups and the feel of that definitely changes, whether it's middle school or high school. But it's a good test market. We throw it at the staff. And it's funny because a lot of people would think that since we do graphic arts and we do teach a lot of that, that we would be using our own people to design campaigns. they're educators. Their job is to teach a kid how to run that program, how to design and do that kind of stuff. And they can't often work on deadlines. So for me, we still use an agency, and we still tap into that. But we do a lot of in-house stuff too. We do some, like all of our postcards we create. But it still comes from that main vision that we've collected over the this particular campaign.
If I could touch on that, that can be tough sometimes. Again, especially at Bowling Green State University, when you've got a College of Musical Arts, you've got fine arts, you've got 3D, you've got all these things. Again, these are very educated, capable people in their own rights. But no, we don't go to them for design.
That are used to critiquing.
Well, and yes, and some of the best flattery we can get is when they're happy with where we're going, because that's not always the case. But they also understand. Well, they also understand that we have specific missions. Again, the audience changes, like you're talking about your grade levels. BGSU is always traditionally known as an undergraduate education institution. So a lot of our traditional students coming in has been the focus of most of our marketing. We are having to diversify a lot more. We're having to look at international students. We're having to look at adult learners. We're having to create programs first and foremost that meet those needs. But now the marketing is shifting as well. And how do we get messages out that fit those people? Yeah.
When it comes to developing creative talent, Dave, what does your school do especially well?
I think we empower students. I think we empower our kids. The biggest challenge for me is to educate our students that there's a value to being an artist. I'm a drummer, man. So many guys give it away. So many musicians give it away because they love to play. And it's hard. It's hard to make a living, especially in Toledo. I was able to eke a few years out here, but we had to go on the road in order to make a living as a musician because so many people will give it away. And so that it's very competitive in that way. And so I would say that my personal challenge is to educate our students that there's a value to being an artist. And then I have to convince the community. We have a whole outreach program where our students go out and perform. We have the only steel drum band in Northwestern Ohio that goes out in gigs. And people will say, well, it's a school. Why are you charging me? That's how we do our fundraising, man. Yeah. And it's a great experience for our kids to go out and do this. But people will easily take advantage of an artist, and it seems like it's okay,
I'll counter that a little bit because I think Toledo, Northwest Ohio, and even the state of Ohio does pretty good with regard to the number of people that have jobs in the arts and the number of billions of dollars. Again, I had given you a postcard that there's a group out of our College of Business organizational development that looks at these numbers. And again, it's pretty staggering when you know that the arts in Ohio is generating almost $27 billion. And again, that's across the board. That's everything from what you do to what we're doing, and certainly the museums and the galleries and other things of that nature. So there really is, and I would say to the people out there watching this, a very strong creative and arts industry taking place. I think it is difficult sometimes when you're starting out to not give things away, but again, we feel pretty happy about it. And certainly in educating our students, we tell them the same things. Again, I think some of the most important things are having versatility in what it is your area of art is, because as we said, these channels of communication, the forms of communication keep changing. So just because you know in design today doesn't mean that you're going to know how to handle tools in the future. Or just because you know fine art, you're probably going to be put in an environment, have to do something in 3D. You're probably going to have to be put into an environment to do something in interactive. So that's really key to, I think, what we express at BGSU, and that's even how we've kind of created a collaboration even in our building structure. We now have the College of Musical Arts, Fine Art, and Theater and Film programs side by side. We have kind of a little arts district now at BGSU. So that's to help that whole concept and that collaboration and that kind of cross-learning.
To support what you're saying here, Fred, Ohio Citizens for the Arts put this out. Over $8 billion in employee wages. This is in Ohio alone. Ohio's creative industries. $2.4 billion in federal, state, and local tax revenues, almost 200,000 jobs in Ohio's economy. and the arts contribute more than almost $24 billion to Ohio's economy. So that's
And there's a lot of collaborative groups like yours, like BGSU, again, that are working with our state and other folks to make sure that we keep investing in that, because we do pretty well. I mean, again.
So we've talked a couple times about how things can change and learning those basics, knowing those basics. But aside from the technical side of what a creative might do, whether that's learning how to work software or the technicalities of writing, for instance, what do you think creatives need to know in order to do great work? What qualities are you looking for when you hire somebody?
When we're looking to hire, and I think, again, if I'm looking at young people in the education process, it's to learn as much as you can about different areas of art and design. Again, that's why we like that collaborative environment. I think as an employer, I break it down to some very straightforward basics of what I need in my position, which is I need people that are capable, I need them fast, and I need them learning at all times. And again, speed for many creatives can be a stumbling block. Again, you need to be able to move that product out. You need to make sure that it's ready to go. You need to make sure that, again, if it's going to hit the print press, you're not going to run into any problems. I mean, those are things that you can't necessarily see in a resume from someone. People can show you fantastic pieces of art, but you don't know how long it took them to come to that concept and that direction and to finish that piece of art. So we work in a very fast-paced world and industry, and to have people that can move and think that quickly is really, really something I would suggest.
So if you had that ability to knock out great work and very quickly, then we would suggest certainly finding some way to measure that and talk about that, whether it's a resume, an interview, whatever.
Right, and it's difficult, again, because depending on where your background is, where you've worked, again, pace can be very different depending on the environment you're in. But I think always being able to excel and accelerate and finish things in a timely manner is really critical.
Dave, what would you like to see young creatives better prepared to do as they come into TSA?
Students overall, we consider all of our students artists. They need to be better prepared, and I'm not. It's a national epidemic. I could put a dot on the forehead of kids that come from certain areas or certain schools, frankly, that are ill prepared to enter our 6th grade. And what's unfortunate for us is the schools become so popular. If you get in the 6th grade, you're in good shape, because we start a new 6th grade every year. For instance, last year we took on 120 new students. 95 of them were 6th graders. So when you think about 7th through 12th, there weren't a lot of openings. So we're getting kids very young, and we hope that they have their basic stuff down. And being ill-prepared for school, frankly, is probably one of our biggest challenges. As far as young creatives, what we would like to see them better prepared so we can actually start working on the art and influencing their work through art. We fundamentally believe the arts are the carrot. And the reason I probably love the place so much is because as a musician, that's all I wanted to do was continue to play. So I learned a lot of other things in order to allow me to do that. Mm-hmm. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. And I think influencing young people to understand that being an artist is not an excuse. Being an artist is a lifestyle, and you can still make a living. You don't have to live in your mother's basement. You still have to be responsible. You still have to show your butt up on time, and you have to meet deadlines, and you have to do those basic things. So that's kind of what we try to really pound into the kids as they're there. No, you have this gig, you're responsible for doing these types of things. That's why we have our outreach program for our performing artists. That's why our visual artists are involved in doing art shows and looking at the marketing aspect of it, because all that is encompassing. That you have to be able to do that part. You could be the best bass player in the world, but if you don't walk out of the house and get in front of people, and you don't have the ability to shake somebody's hand and say, hey, I need a gig, help me out. You got to be able to do all that stuff. So I think that's probably what we look for. That's what we try to deliver upon graduation, as a kid prepared for college or the industry at some level, and at least can understand the terminology related to that industry. and be able to hang as much as we could.
And I would add for a lot of the independents that are out there that the entrepreneurial skills is, again, another thing that you really need to take a look at. Because, again, if you want to be an independent and you want to be a creative, you've still got to do those business practices. You've still got to be able to network and get your information in front of people at the right time. So, again, something that we certainly express at BGSU through our programs. But having a good understanding of what it means to be an entrepreneur is really necessary.
It's necessary if you're going to be a freelancer.
Yeah.
It's you have nothing to fall back on. You're the one
Absolutely,
who-
right.
Sales, creative, everything. You're everything. So,
Yep, absolutely.
so Fred, then, what then would you like to see creatives doing better as they leave college, as they head into the workforce? What do you wish they were better prepared to do?
Well, that's a tough question.
Skills or-
Because again, really, I mean, the schools, for the most part, are teaching them the things they need to know. I think it's the passion, the drive, and in some regard, even having a passion for reading and understanding different things. Because again, to be able to come up with a creative concept that's going to meet a marketing need, you have to have a sense of what that end product is, or what those people think, or how they react. It can't just be, I can draw real well. I mean, you've got to be able to find how you can read people, how you can read the situation, how you can understand if you're given some data about, we want this and this and this and this, and the audience is here, how do you connect those things? So I think that's something that I would really express to people, and being able to sell themselves. Again, it's really a shame when we're in the hiring process and people come before you and they can't sell their skills because they can't sell themselves. They might be very good, but again, you've got to be able to stand in front of somebody and tell them why you're the best fit for that job.
Most successful creatives I know aren't afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah.
They're not afraid. They just kind of keep going for it, and they can evolve. I'll run into an artist that I met 5-6 years ago that was doing clay. Oh, look at what I'm doing now. I'm like, it's glass. Same thing, man. And they'll move from things because the world changes. The world changes, and they can morph with it. And God forbid you have to get a real job.